I often talk about the four horses of the apocalypse, which in psychology they call it the dark triad, but it's actually, I don't know, better described as a dark tetrad, which is psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism and sadism. And I was reading this book, The Winner Takes All, the elite charade of changing the world, and it's written by Anand Giridharadas. I'm probably saying that wrong. But Winner Takes All, the elite charade of changing the world. And the interesting thing about it was that he was talking about the fact that quite often people will say, oh, you know, when they get to extreme wealth, that they will then help and try to find ways to change the systems that we're operating in to try and make them more socially just, environmentally sustainable and so forth. The challenge with that, of course, is the fact that you know, they're dealing with their own biases, and the fact is that power has a problem of changing the way you see the world, obviously. And the problem is that you know, we weren't designed to have overly powerful people. In our DNA, we were collaborative. We collaborated our way to the top of the tree, I tend to say. If you look at our history, we find that you know, for millions of years we were primates. Our ancestors were primates, and we know that primates live in hierarchical organisations, or a lot of them do. Some do actually live in more egalitarian ways, and we're finding more and more evidence these days about of how our hunter-gatherer ancestors were more egalitarian, more collaborative, and they had social norms to stop them. We call them strategies to overcome power. So if a hunter came back with, you know, hunter would come back with, say, a big animal on his shoulder, his or her shoulder, everyone would good-naturedly say, what have you brought that gerbil back for, you know, but anyway, give it here. And they had these strategies to overcome power, to increase social norms, because they knew that if you allow someone to get too much power or too much status within a group, it changes their behaviour, and out comes this inner chump, this primate behaviour, which is dominance hierarchy based on physicality usually, some bullying and that kind of thing. So they knew that hunter-gatherers know that this doesn't work. They've studied this with San tribes people and other contemporary hunter-gatherers, and found that they tend to be more egalitarian. Last 13,000 years, though, some bloke got an advantage, and in the Agrarian Revolution, and then since then we've developed this tech hierarchy, and of course this tech hierarchy has had disastrous results. I mean, yes, we've benefited in some ways, but technology is only ever any good if it's shared, and that's the problem. It's like the hunters have gone out, found the prize, come back, and have kept it to themselves, and that's not what we originally used to do. So what we need to do is look at a different way going forward. We don't really know that you know, how can we balance the tech? Now the challenges are there's a thing called dominance behaviour system in the brain, and what that tends to do is you know, if you look at kind of the types of people that we can be, I'm trying not to make this too long, this bloody video, but you know, we've always got these in business especially, we've got these kind of archetypes, and they're no different to when we were, you know, hunter-gatherers. All that's changed is we've just called them different names, and they've obviously evolved a little bit. But you know, we used to have like hunter, gatherer, shaman, scout. Shaman comes from the Mongolian word to mean to know, and they would be the people that would manage resources and know when to hunt and that kind of thing. You know, gatherers would be the people that collaborated and gathered food, and they tended to produce most of the work. which is pretty much what goes on now. The scouts would go and find other communities to barter and trade with, but also find new hunting grounds, and the hunters would go out there. People with that kind of personality tend to have a higher tolerance for risk. Now we call them founder, entrepreneur, managers, and probably coaches, you know, if you're looking at that, or healers or counsellors or that kind of thing. And what's supposed to happen is this kind of like a life cycle. You know, Joseph Campbell calls this the hero's journey. And what happens is that these people go out, explore new ideas, new opportunities. These people exploit them. These people establish rules and boundaries and try to enclose it. And then these people equalise it. And that's what we want, really. We want opportunities to be equalised. But when you get too much of a hierarchy, in pops in this dominance behaviour system. It's part of the brain, goes back to our primate ancestry. You know, we can't take a brain out, put a new, you know, evolution doesn't take a brain out and put a completely new working model. It just adds to it. So those other ones are all encapsulated, such as, you know, the stroppy teenager is still inside you. And given the right environment, like going back to see your parents, for instance, it might pop out. You might find yourself acting as you did then. But also, if you put too much hierarchy in a system, you then get the same thing happening again. And what happens is that what I call the inner chump comes out. It's competitive. It's harmful to the ecosystem. It's unconsciously egocentric. It's motivated by fear and greed, and it's paradigm blind. It just can't see the damage it's doing, and it also suffers from paradigm inertia, which is, well, if it's winning, it doesn't want to change what's happening. So you can aspire to be a better person as a wealthy person in power. You can be inspired to change the world, but at the end of the day, motivation is going to trump all that, and that's the challenge we've got. Is the fact that, you know, you're not going to get social justice, you're not going to get sustainable behaviours. All you're going to do is, well, yeah, try and change everything, but keep it within, keep the change as the same. We say that we're scared of change. That's not completely true. We change all the time to stay in the same place, or that's what, you know, the winners of this paradigm are doing. What they're scared of is transformation, and so people, as it says in this Winners Take All book, you know, the elites, the 1% or whatever, are putting themselves in situations where they control what actually changes, and obviously they don't want transformation. And so, yeah, so what happens in the hero's journey is that there's a refusal of the call, but, you know, this is where people who are more tolerant for risk, the hunters or the entrepreneurs, take on the challenge, and they go out there and they find the prize. And then there's this thing called refusal of the return, Campbell calls it. And really this is when you're supposed to come back with a boon, with the prize, and share it. And that's what should have happened with technology. It should have been shared. If we use technology in the right way, we would all benefit from it, but we're not. And of course, what's going to happen is that AI is going to come in and drive in even more inequality. That's the next wave, isn't it? Because technology at the end of the day is just a tap. It's tools to accumulate power, which is basically taps take resources from a wide area, funnel them, and then, of course, we talk about trickle-down economics. But if it's in your home, you would share it freely. But if it's, you know, other people's homes, oh no, you can't. You know, we're not going to do that. And so they spend all the time finding new ways not to share the wealth around and that kind of thing. So yeah, dominance behaviour system. I believe that every business should really be employee owned. You should be working towards that. You might be a founder or an entrepreneur, you start a business, you put some management systems in place, and then you're supposed to share it and make it employee owned. That way you'd keep the wealth in the community, and, you know, it'd be more resilient, and as a result of that. It's a great idea. Why don't we do it? Well, we don't do it because the people that don't do it are the people that are now driven by this power situation where they're in power, and they're now kickstart the dominance behaviour system. And the reverse of that is the involuntary defeat system, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we've seen people quietly resigning, or the mass resignation, is the fact that during the pandemic they had a bit of freedom. They weren't feeling dominated, and we don't like it, and it's really bad for our health to be dominated. And so that's why you have so much stress in the organisations, in the workplace. We're just not supposed to do it. We collaborated our way to the top. At the moment, because of tech and because of hierarchy, the hierarchy's trashing the planet, making people basically very unhappy. Whatever we got going, where the wealth did help other people for a while, but of course now we're beginning to go back on. It's beginning to diminish the actual value that it's actually handing to people, and now what we're getting is such a great big divide between the haves and the haves not, that really dominance behaviour system is going to really be a negative going forward. So yeah, you don't need to do it. Strategies to overcome power, employee ownerships. There's lots of ways you can prevent that happening. But the best thing as a leader, you've got to be self-aware. And so, dominance behaviour, check it out.